we to a point where we get like Japan, where we put netting all the way around the field?
Yes, I think we do. We saw it have to happen in hockey some 10, 15 years ago, and I've heard the baseball purist say that that's gonna ruin the game. I've sat behind home plate numerous times, and after the first 2 minutes when you sit down, you don't notice it anymore. You know what I mean? Like you don't notice it anymore. And to me, as much time as people spend on their phones at games and not paying attention or talking, or what I mean, it's a safety thing that this can't continue to happen. It's not right. Now, the one thing that does eliminate is, that will eliminate contact with players going into the seats. We've seen a lot of Derek Jeter plays over the years, or Ozzie Smith, who makes those miraculous catches over the wall, or very good third basemen who do that. So that will eliminate that some, but at the end of the day, for fan safety, I think it's going to be a move that has to be done. And that once you sit down in your seats, you'll continue not to notice it. Sitting behind home plate is still an amazing experience, whether that's there or not. So I think that, yes, sooner or later that's going to happen, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Because I'll tell you, when I take my kids to the game, whether it be hockey or baseball, we always sit behind the net because I have younger kids, so we sit behind the net, whether it's baseball or hockey. And you know what? At least it gives me a little bit of peace of mind when I'm trying to deal with two kids, at a game. It's a lot easier to do that when I don't have to worry about the ball or the puck coming at us. So, I'm all for it, honestly. Maybe if I was single, and didn't have any kids, maybe I wouldn't care as much about it. But to see it happen, especially to a kid, it's unbelievable, and it's a terrible thing. So I'm all for it. I love the game of baseball, but it's not going to hurt my experience one bit if I'm sitting down the third baseline and there's a net there, not one bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we were talking about hockey, so there's two of my favorite teams that are playing. St. Louis Blues. One game away, baby. One game away. Real quickly, let's break down the Stanley Cups. They're going to bring it home in the Arch City. And then there's something else going on in St. Louis with baseball that you and I will agree to disagree on. And we'll get to that in just a second. But the Stanley Cup Finals, my St. Louis Blues going to do it, baby. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's another thing, just like the Raptors, where I think they've got to end it, tonight. I don't think that it'll be wise for them to let this series go back to Boston. Boston plays such a physical game that normally it's worn other teams down. We saw it happen, to a Columbus Blue Jackets team that was hot. They've played so physical that I think that they tire other teams out. But I think maybe that physical play now has gotten to the point to where they started to run out of gas a little bit. And it's been some great goaltending, but can you continue to trust him after the onslaught from a few games back? Can you continue to trust Lewis's goaltender to make more amazing shots, more amazing stops like he did, the other night in Boston? So if you're St. Louis, I think that you've got to put the series to bed tonight. It's going to be a highly emotional thing, being back home, trying to bring the cup home to St. Louis. Can they try to keep the nerves at bay and come out there and play strong hockey first? To me, St. Louis has got to score early. They've got to score first. They've got to make Boston play catch up. So, and it'll be interesting to see how the refs react because, there were a couple of calls that were considered controversial the other night that led to a St. Louis goal. So will we see the referee and the calls tighten up? So, you're going to have to fill out the game early. I think it's important for them to score, obviously, first. But it's going to be important, I think, for both teams to feel the refs out and how they're calling this game.
Well, I said there were two games in St. Louis. I meant there were two games of St. Louis that matter. And let's put on the MLB hat for just a few moments. My Cardinals against your Cubs, Flatter against Lester, Oza against Rizzo. I mean, I don't really care what the record is. It's the Cardinals and the Cubs. That is the rivalry. I mean, people say what you want about the Yankees and the Red Sox. Say what you want about the Giants and the Dodgers. Say what you want about any other rivalry in baseball. Nothing's more richer, nothing's more better than my St. Louis Cardinals and your Chicago Cubs, which suck, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the Cubs are looking for a little bit of revenge after last weekend's sweep. Cole Hamels had a pretty good game yesterday, double-digit strikeout game as they beat the Cardinals 3-1. The one thing that isn't going to show up, obviously, for a week or two, I think for the Cubs is signing Craig Kimbrell, just because the Cubs bullpen has struggled mightily this year. We've seen the Cubs give up leads and give up games, in the last couple of innings for numerous times this year. So I think that's big for the Cubs. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully the Cubs can get back those 3 games that they blew the Cardinals last weekend.
Well, we haven't had a chance to talk much MLB, so let's just kind of go through today's game and just whet our taste buds with the MLB, obviously with the NBA finals and a lot of other stuff going on in sports. We just haven't got to the MLB. We have not forgot about it because I know you and I are both big baseball fans. Today, the Rays and the Red Sox kick things off at 1 o'clock. What say you, sir, the Rays and the Red Sox?
Well, I mean, the Tampa Bay Rays have been a surprise this year, obviously, because there's not a lot of big-name players on that team. And the Red Sox, who are defending world champions, we've expected a lot more from them. They're finally a couple of games above 500, but they still sit 6.5 games behind the Yankees. And I think all of baseball is waiting to see when they try to kick this into gear. So it'll be interesting. 2 of the teams in the top 3 and from the division likely where maybe both of the wild card teams come from. So it'll be interesting, going to be an important game, even though it's so early on. If it comes down to these 2 teams battling for wild card spots at the end of the year, these games here could end up being important. So, again, it's all the big name, high priced talent against, it seems like the average Joes who go out there and do it every day for Tampa Bay. So it should be a fun game.
The Athletics are on the road against my favorite American League team, and that's the Texas Rangers. I do love me some Rangers. I'm going to say go Rangers, but what are your thoughts against the A's and the Rangers?
2 teams that, again, are barely above 500. It's a game right now that to me is you got teams that are 10 and 11 games back in their division. The Astros are obviously the class of that division, and I don't see either one of them catching them. So, I think they're going to have to try to play to have a decent record to try to make it as a wild card team, but I don't think anybody catches the Astros. The other Chicago team and Kansas City today, neither one of those teams seem to be lighting the world on fire. Just a few years back, we saw both of those teams lighting the world on fire. What happened to the Royals? What happened to the White Sox? Yeah, they both suck.
Valid point.
I mean, to be quite honest, they're both terrible. They're both going through rebuilds. I think that the White Sox have a little bit more talent right now, and they may be primed to make a run a little quicker. The Royals are just, they're terrible. They're 20-43, 22 and a half games out. There's no way that they do anything at all for the next few years.
Another fun team to watch is sitting right at 500, and that's the Diamondbacks, and they are in Toronto against the Blue Jays. Not a lot to talk about there with that game, but the Arizona Diamondbacks are kind of in a proving stage at this point.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks they trade away their big star, and they've still got some pretty good pitching. They've got some young guys that could be decent, but you trade away a franchise player, and it's a signal to your fans that hey, we've got to try to redo this thing. I hate these slow rebuilds that teams do. I like the way that the Cubs a few years ago, 7-8 years ago, just blew it up. And they knew they're going to be bad for a while, but, it brought them a World Series. So I'm more a fan. If you're going to try this slow rebuild, don't just blow the whole thing up and try to move forward.
I think we're both completely okay with this afternoon's game, another National League Central team, and that's the Reds against the Phillies. The Reds are doing what the Reds do, and then the Reds are just there. But they're playing a very good Phillies team. I, again, don't look for a lot of fireworks out of this game, but if the Phillies pull off a win and can stretch that margin with the Reds, I'm completely okay with. Are you there?
I mean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. The Phillies, they're a team that obviously have made some high price moves. They're a team that you would expect more from at this point. I mean, it's not like they're having a bad season by any means. They're in first place, 2 games ahead of the Braves. But the Reds are in a division that's very tough. I think the Reds may be in what might be in the most competitive division. They're in last place, but they're 7 games out. And they're still trying to figure things out. They've got a bunch of talent that was new to the team in the Reds, but they're trying to get to play together and figure it out. They still need some pitching, obviously, but they're not by any means where they sit in last place out of it. So, I think the Reds have a shot to make some moves if they feel like it, or they're going to have be able to offload some guys that they can bring some younger guys in. So I think the Reds are in an okay spot as we move towards July.
Well, we're about out of time here, but we got one more game to talk about. And my screen just went funky, bro. Just started going flash, flash, flash. We overloaded it, I guess. But it's the Twins and the Tigers, Brownsburg's own Gibson, and why do his first name escapes me? Kyle Gibson. I'm sorry, Kyle Gibson of the Twins. When I say Brownsburg, everybody knows where Brownsburg is. Obviously, west suburb of Indianapolis. We know where Brownsburg is, but they take on the Detroit Tigers. The Twins on a tear, though. They're doing some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the Twins, people thought that it might be the second best team in the division this year, but I don't think anybody saw them just jumping out and running away. And honestly, they may be the best team in baseball that nobody's talking about. They're a team that's got it all. They got hitting, they got pitching, they got defense, and they're definitely a team to be reckoned with, I think, when it comes playoff time. I like everything about this Minnesota Twins team.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We've been talking with Mo from the BS Sports Show. Mo, thanks for talking with us about the NBA Finals, the NHL. What's on your agenda for the weekend, sir? Anything exciting?
Watching hockey.
Quit pucking around, all right? We're going to do some pucking.
I will, my friend, I will.
All right, buddy. Have yourself a good weekend. Where can people find your work and masterpieces, sir?
On Twitter at Mo Radio Show.
All right, buddy. We'll talk with you soon. Have yourself a good weekend.
You too, buddy.
Mo from the BS Sports Show. Man, what a fun show it's been today. And unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. And we're at that 2-minute warning. Remember to follow us on Twitter at TBalance. But also, if you're listening to us on the podcast, thank you, first of all. But there's one other thing you've got to do if you've not done it, and that's hit subscribe or add or favorite, whatever it is, so that every time we load a new podcast, which is our show, you'll get to hear it in full. Because we know that everybody doesn't listen to us live as we'd like, but hey, we're there on the podcast. We're out there in podcast world. My name's Tom Marquis, El Presidente. Thank you, Tyson Lautenschlager, onpitroad.com, Ed Kracz, Philadelphia Eagles beat writer, and our official NFL contributor, and of course, Mo from the BS Sports Show. Remember, don't drink and drive. It isn't cool. I'm out of here. We'll see you here next Saturday, right here on the Balance Radio Network. I'm out of here. Deuces.
Join us next week for The Balance. In the meantime, check us out on Twitter, T-Balance, or Facebook, The Balance, or on